If quiet stories about tired people choosing each other and changing a whole company from the inside make your heart ache in the best way, stay with this one until the end. And if Naomi and Ethan's journey touches you even a little, please like this video and subscribe so you don't miss the next slow, healing story on this channel. Rain had a way of stripping everything down. The city lost its shine under it. Neon signs blurred, street lights smeared into long, trembling lines on wet asphalt. By the time Ethan Cole's car crawled past the last of the industrial plants, the wipers were moving on high, smearing gray and orange across his windshield. He should have gone straight home. That was the plan. End-of-quarter reports were done. The site inspection had run late. His tie was in the passenger seat, draped over a folder. His jaw ached from clenching. Then he saw her. At first, it was just a shape under the bus shelter, a hunched figure on a metal bench, still while everything else moved. As his car drew closer, the headlights caught the outline of a woman holding something close to her chest. Not something, someone, a baby, wrapped in a thin blanket, head tucked under her chin. The woman's coat was too small, pulled tight over both of them. Her hair stuck to her cheeks. Even through the glass, Ethan could see the shiver in her shoulders. His foot moved to the brake before his brain caught up. He flipped on his hazard lights. Cars slid past, honking half-heartedly, but he eased toward the curb anyway. The cold hit him like a slap when he stepped out. Rain slid down the back of his neck, found its way inside his shirt collar. He grabbed the emergency poncho from the back seat as he went. Up close, she looked younger than he'd thought. Mid-20s, maybe. Eyes too old. The kind of tired you couldn't sleep off. "I'm okay," she said quickly as he approached, tightening her arms around the baby. "We're just waiting for the next bus." Another cough shook the small bundle. Not the soft, fussy sound of a sleepy child. A rough, scraping sound that made Ethan's chest tighten. He held out the poncho. "At least take this," he said. "We're fine," she insisted. Pride, not anger. The baby coughed again. Ethan didn't argue. He stepped a little closer and lifted the poncho so it covered the baby's head and most of the woman's shoulders, shielding them from the worst of the rain. Her grip loosened a fraction. "My car is right there," he said. "I'll take you somewhere close. You can decide where." She looked up at him then, properly. Her eyes were dark, wary, but there was something else there too. Calculation. The fast, quiet math of a mother measuring risk against a child's lungs. Slowly, she nodded. "Okay," she said. "Just to the apartment." Inside the car, the heater hummed. The air fogged faintly with warmth. She sat stiff, the baby little girl, from the pink hat curled against her chest. "Seatbelt," Ethan said gently. She shifted, awkward with one arm, and clicked the belt into place. He didn't ask her name. She didn't ask his. She murmured to the baby instead, words soft and steady. "Almost home. Me Luna," she whispered. "Just a little more. Mommy's here." He followed her directions through side streets and past a row of low, tired apartment buildings. Half the windows were dark. The rest flickered with cheap yellow light. "That one," she said finally, nodding to a brick building with a busted front step. He pulled over. She reached for the door handle. "Wait," he said. She froze. He reached behind him, grabbed a folded sweater from the backseat, and set it on the seat beside her. Then he added the small bag of pastries he'd been given at a meeting hours earlier. Untouched. "For the night," he said. "For her." Her throat moved as she swallowed. "Thank you," she said, barely audible over the rain. She stepped out, cradling the baby in the bag, head bowed. He watched in the rearview mirror as she hurried up to the stoop. She didn't go inside right away. She stood under the weak porch light, shoulders bowed, the shape of the child held close. Rain matted her hair. For a long moment, but she didn't move at all, like the weight of everything had pinned her there. Ethan looked away first. He drove off. He didn't turn the radio back on. 4 days later, she pushed a mop bucket out of a service elevator and into his building. The lobby of Coal Line Energy's headquarters was all glass and polished stone. At midnight, it gleamed coldly under fluorescent lights. The daytime noise was gone. Only the soft echo of her footsteps remained. Naomi Reyes adjusted the strap of her cleaning cart with one hand and held a worn cloth in the other. The new uniform shirt still felt stiff across her shoulders. The job had come from the employment center, night janitorial work, standard rate, no benefits, but it was steady, and the babysitter June knew a neighbor who was willing to watch Leah for the overnight as long as Naomi paid on time. She'd signed the contract fast, only noticing the company name when she arrived for orientation. Coal Line Energy. She stood at the back of the small briefing room while the floor manager went over schedules and routes. Her name was called last. "You'll be assigned to floors 20 through 22, he said. "Executive offices. Mostly empty at night. Keep it quiet." Naomi nodded. Quiet. She could do. Later, as the building emptied floor by floor, she pushed her cart down a long hallway of glass-walled offices. The city sprawled outside, a spill of lights under the dark. She moved like a ghost. Wipe, sweep, replace trash bags. No sound except the soft squeak of wheels and the occasional click of her spray bottle. Most doors were dark. One at the end still glowed. She paused long enough to read the name on the plaque beside it. Ethan Cole. Her stomach dropped. She looked through a slim gap in the blinds. He sat at his desk in the shirt sleeves, jacket hanging on a hook. A small desk lamp cast a pool of warm light across the papers in front of him. He was frowning at some report, pen tapping against the table. She didn't look any closer. She lowered her head, wiped the glass with practiced efficiency, and moved on. Night after night, the routine repeated. She came in when the last office workers left. She cleared coffee cups, wiped monitors, emptied bins. She cleaned his office carefully when the light was off. She never touched his papers. She thought he didn't notice. She was wrong. He noticed the smell first, a faint hint of lemons, fresh but not artificial. Then the windows. The streak he'd been ignoring for weeks was gone. His keyboard, which he was sure no one had ever cleaned, no longer had a sticky sheen between the keys. One night, he left a stack of files scattered across his desk in frustration. In the morning, they were still there but neatly aligned, edges straightened, tabs visible. Nothing moved out of place, just better. Curiosity, not suspicion, pushed him toward the security office. He watched the footage with his usual distance, thousands of little squares showing empty halls, sleeping elevators, blinking lights, and her pushing a cart, hair twisted into a messy knot, sleeves rolled, moving with precision, never more than she needed, never lingering. The camera zoom wasn't great, but he caught the name on her badge when she wiped his door, Naomi. He should have recognized her sooner. The bus stop hadn't been that long ago, but people under rain and city shadows blurred in his memory. Seeing her here under office light made something align. He didn't seek her out. Not yet. The night they collided, literally. He wasn't thinking about her at all. It was 10:30. His eyes ached from screens. The numbers on his last report kept trying to slip out of their columns. He stepped out of his office, more focused on the message on his phone than the hallway. She turned the corner at the same time, pushing her cart. They almost crashed. The mop bucket squeaked dangerously. She gasped and yanked the cart back. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly, pressing herself against the glass to make room. He froze, up close, without rain. Her face was clearer. The same eyes, the same determined line to her mouth, and the same tiredness. He started? Her eyes widened in recognition. "Oh," she breathed. "It's you." They stared at each other for a second that felt longer than it was. He opened his mouth, searching for something appropriate. "Hi, I let you into my car in a storm didn't seem right." She saved him from trying. "Excuse me," she said, dipping her head. "I'll stay out of your way." She pushed her cart past him before he could stop her, folding back into the quiet. He watched her go, for the first time in a long time. He didn't mind the smell of lemons lingering after someone left. The fever started with a small heat against Naomi's palm. Leah lay on the thrift store mattress, cheeks flushed, hair sticking to her forehead. The digital thermometer blinked angrily. 102. Naomi muttered, "Of course." The sitter had canceled an hour earlier. June's daughter, who sometimes watched Leah, was working a double. The clinic bill from the last visit still sat unpaid on Naomi's counter. The clock on her phone read 10:12 p.m. Her shift started in 48 minutes. She tried calling 3 more numbers. No one answered. Leah whimpered, coughing. Naomi pressed her lips to her daughter's forehead. Too hot. She grabbed the medicine bottle, measured out a dose, coaxed it past small lips. She knew the drill. She knew what to watch for. But fever had a way of making every what-if sound like a siren. She paced the tight space between the bed and the wall, baby on her shoulder, mind racing. If she missed another shift, she could lose the job. If she kept the job, she'd leave Leah alone. There was no good option. There never seemed to be. Her eyes landed on the small backpack by the door. 15 minutes later, Leah was bundled in a blanket, pressed against her chest, head tucked under Naomi's chin. Naomi's cleaning cart rattled as they left the service elevator on the 12th floor. The old security room near the storage closet had a door that didn't quite close and a camera that had been dead for months. She'd learned that from June. Once stayed in there all night during a snowstorm, June had said with a chuckle. Management never noticed. Naomi spread a folded blanket on the floor, laid Leah down, and placed a worn stuffed rabbit beside her. I'm right outside, she whispered. If it gets worse, we go. I promise. Leah coughed, a small, rough sound. Naomi's hands trembled as she smoothed her hair. Then she forced herself back into the hall. 2 floors to finish. She moved faster than usual, ears hunched, listening for the smallest cry. It came sooner than she'd hoped. A thin, strained whimper drifted down the hall as she finished the last trash bag. Naomi dropped the bin liner and ran. Leah's breaths were coming harder now, each one a little fight. Her chest rose and fell unevenly, a wheeze under the cough. No, 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 Naomi whispered. Not tonight, baby. She scooped her up, rocking, heart pounding. Her brain flipped through what she remembered last dose of meds, previous allergic reaction, signs of respiratory distress. They were crossing a line she didn't want to cross alone. What's going on in here? The voice made her spin. Ethan filled the doorway, shadow cutting into the dim room. His coat was slung over one shoulder, tie gone, top button open. His eyes took in the scene in a second. Blanket, small body, flushed cheeks, the fear in Naomi's face. Why is there a child here, he asked, voice flat but not sharp. I'm sorry, Estolsa, she blurted. I had no one to leave her with. She had a fever, but I couldn't miss another shift. I thought she'd sleep. Leah coughed again, a harsh, wet sound that shook her whole body. Naomi's voice dropped, focused. She reacted to sulfamethoxazole last time, she said. We haven't given her any since. She took acetaminophen an hour ago. If this is tightening in the airways instead of just fever, we don't have time to wait. Ethan didn't hesitate. Come on, he said. We're going to a clinic. What? No, Now, Naomi. He said her name like it wasn't strange to him that he knew it. She clutched Leah close and followed. The clinic was small and bright and smelled faintly of antiseptic and old coffee. The receptionist took one look at Leah and waved them through. A nurse clipped a pulse oximeter onto the baby's toe. Tell me what's been going on, the doctor said. Stepping in, clipboard in hand, Naomi's voice was shaky but precise. Fever started 6 hours ago, she said. She's been coughing for 2 days, but it was dry. Tonight it got wet and higher pitched. She's had this reaction once before with sulfa drugs rash, wheeze, inflammation. We haven't given her any since, but I'm worried the infection's in her chest now. The doctor paused, eyes flicking up to Naomi. You a nurse, he asked. Naomi shook her head. I was in med school, she said. It was a long time ago. The doctor nodded slowly. You're right to be cautious, he said. We'll give her something to open the airways and bring the fever down. Good call bringing her in now. Out in the hallway, Ethan sat on a plastic chair that had seen better years. The vending machine hummed. A clock ticked too loudly. He wasn't used to waiting rooms anymore. He'd spent enough hours in one at 16, watching his father crumble under fluorescent lights, listening to a surgeon say words like electrocution and equipment failure in a tone that suggested this happened all the time. Since then, Ethan made decisions. He moved. He changed things. He did not sit and hope. Now he sat and waited and hoped a tiny chest would keep rising and falling in the next room. When Naomi came out, Leah cradled in her arms under a fresh blanket. Her shoulders sagged, but her face had eased. She'll be okay, Naomi said. They're keeping her under observation for a bit. It's not as bad as it sounded. He exhaled slowly. You knew exactly what to tell them, he said. She shrugged, eyes dropping. I remember more than I thought I would, she said. Even if the letters on the degree are never going to be next to my name. Why did you stop? He asked. Her fingers tightened around the blanket. Wrong timing, she said. And the wrong people. She didn't elaborate. He didn't press. They sat in silence, the hum of the building wrapping around them. The storm hit the city properly a week later. Thunder cracked overhead. Rain lashed against the glass walls of the 20th floor. At 11:42 p.m., the lights went out with a snap. Naomi stood in the break room, hands full of cleaning supplies, staring into sudden darkness. Well, she said to no one. That's great. Emergency lights glowed faintly down the hall. A thin red line. Somewhere, an old UPS unit beeped protest. Light flared to her left. Ethan stood in the doorway, phone flashlight held high. Backup should kick in, he said. Eventually. Until then, Naomi replied, we have ambiance. He huffed, something like a laugh. You can take a break, he said. No one's monitoring the shine level of the counters in an outage. And leave crumbs, she asked. Can't have that. She found the small round table in the center of the room by feel and set down her cloth. Then she reached into her cart and pulled out a battered plastic container. What's that? He asked, taking the chair opposite hers. His flashlight propped against a cup so the light spread between them. Bribes, she said. For myself, to stay awake. She popped the lid. The smell of cinnamon and brown sugar drifted out of him. Cookies, she said. Technically, they're softer than they look. He hesitated, then took one, bit into it, raised his eyebrows. You undersell yourself, he said. Occupational hazard, she replied. For a while, the only sounds were chewing and distant thunder. You knew about sulfa drugs, he said eventually, and dosing, and when to panic. She rolled a crumb between her fingers. I was in my 3rd year, she said quietly. Top of my class, if you want the arrogant version. What happened, he asked. She stared at the plastic lid. I got pregnant, she said. The father vanished. My parents gave me a choice. End it or leave their house, their insurance, everything. She lifted a shoulder. I chose Leah, she said simply, and a mop. His phone flashlight buzzed faintly as a notification tried and failed to push through the dead network. I cleaned hotel bathrooms when I was 6 months along, she went on. Stopped studying, stopped sleeping much. But the information, I guess it stayed anyway. He looked at her, really looked. Her uniform was cheap, her shoes had seen better days. Her hands were chapped from chemicals, but her spine was straight, her eyes steady. I don't blame them anymore, she added. My parents and they were scared. I was stubborn. We did what we knew. I'd still choose her. Thunder rolled again, softer this time. He tapped the edge of his cup. My mother died because of a mistake, he said. A cheap water heater without a ground wire. I was 16. I'd helped install it for a summer job. Thought I was doing something useful. When it failed, 220 volts through a metal shower handle. He swallowed. I walked out of that company the next day. He said, I told myself if I ever built anything, it would be safer, cleaner, no shortcuts. That's why Cole Line is so obsessive about safety audits. She said, that's why, he said. They sat together in the pool of flashlight glow, thunder miles away. He reached out, almost without thinking, and let his fingers brush the back of her hand. A question, not a claim. Her hand twitched. Then she turned it over, palm up, and let it rest lightly under his. They didn't say anything about it. They didn't need to. The file found her almost by accident. Basement storage hadn't been on Naomi's schedule that week, but June had twisted her knee. Naomi offered to swap floors. The storage room smelled like damp cardboard and dust. She moved boxes around so she could mop the corners, grumbling under her breath about how executives never saw this side of state-of-the-art facilities. Something thin and manila was wedged between a cabinet and the wall. She tugged it free. A label, smudged but legible, ran across the front. Q1 rejected applications, internal use only. She should have put it back. It wasn't her business. But curiosity had sharp teeth, and something about the way internal use only looked next to rejected made her skin itch. She sat on a crate and opened it. Resumes, cover letters, reference lists, all of them polished, careful, hopeful, degrees, years of experience, glowing recommendations. Stamped across each one, in red, failed to meet performance criteria. Naomi frowned. How did you fail at performance before you even started? She flipped through the pile. Same recruiter's name. Same interview note, not a cultural fit. Same sign-off on each rejection. Halfway through, she stopped. Marco Rivera, June's son. Naomi stared at the page. Certification in electrical work. Strong references. 2 apprenticeships. She'd seen the kid's eyes in a photo. He'd looked like someone who showed up early. She stared at the folder until the words blurred. Then she closed it, tucked it under her arm, and went upstairs. She didn't know if it meant anything, but she knew who needed to see it. Ethan stepped out of the elevator into the lobby just as Naomi crossed it. Folder clutched to her chest. "What's that?" he asked. "Something I found in the basement," she said. "I was going to drop it at the front desk. It looks like it got misplaced." She hesitated, then held it out. He flipped it open. Within seconds, his expression shifted. Calm, then sharp. "I've seen 3 of these," he said, tapping a name. "I asked to interview them. I was told they declined." He scanned the rest, jaw tightening. "They didn't decline," he said. "They never got the chance." "What does that mean?" Naomi asked quietly. "It means someone's filtering our hiring pipeline," he said. "And I want to know why." He looked up at her. "Could you talk about how you found this?" he asked. "In front of a few people, the board." Her eyes widened. "Me," she said. "I'm just the one who tripped over it." "You're the one who looked inside," he replied. "Your words matter. They will hear them." She thought of June's tired smile, of Marco's rejection letter, of her own silence, years ago, in the face of her parents' ultimatum. "I've stayed quiet before," she said softly. "I regret it every day." She straightened. "Not this time," she said. "I'll do it." For a moment, something like pride flashed in his eyes. "Thank you," he said. The boardroom on the 18th floor felt like a fishbowl. Glass on 3 sides. The city spread out below like a circuit board. Department heads filled the seats. Assistants hovered in corners. The head of HR, Larkin, sat near the middle, his tie too tight, eyes a little dull. Naomi sat at the far end, in a plain white blouse and dark trousers. Her hands were folded, but her fingers didn't tremble. Ethan stood at the head of the table. "Before we talk expansion," he said, "we need to address something in our foundation." He nodded toward Naomi. "Miss Reyes," he said, "would you start?" She stood. "Last week," she began, "I was cleaning basement storage. I found this folder stuck behind a cabinet. Label said Q1 rejected applications." She slid copies of several resumes down the table. Highlighter marked certain lines. "These candidates had strong experience," she said. "Certifications, internal referrals. All were dismissed for the same reason, failed to meet performance criteria, though none had ever been hired. Most were interviewed by the same recruiter. All rejections were signed by the same person. A murmur rippled through the room. Ms. Reyes isn't familiar with our process, Larkin said, forcing a chuckle. Those are standard notes. It's speculation to suggest anything. Ethan cut in. You're right, he said calmly. She's not from HR. He reached into his own folder and pulled out a document. That's why I had legal verify the signature on these rejection memos. He slid the paper toward Larkin. They don't match yours, Ethan said, at all. Larkin's face lost color. In addition, Ethan went on, we traced the candidates. Many of them were rejected here, then immediately contacted by an outside agency. That agency has a referral agreement with one of our vendors. Fees split. Silence. No one's saying you signed those rejections, Ethan said. But someone in your department did. Someone decided they could make more money diverting talent away before they ever reached us. He looked around the table. I built this company to be better, he said quietly. Cleaner, safer. That doesn't just mean equipment and circuits. It means people. I will not let quiet deals hollow that out. He nodded toward Naomi again. She didn't owe us anything, he said. She could have tossed that folder out and gone back to mopping the floor. Instead, she spoke up, with nothing to gain. He let the words sit. That's the kind of integrity I want at this table, he finished. No one clapped. This wasn't that kind of room, but several heads dipped in small, respectful nods. Naomi sat down, heartbeat loud in her chest. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel invisible. The offer came later, quietly. No board, no speech, just the vending machine humming in the break room at 11:43 p.m., the same place she'd once handed him bad coffee. I want you to stay, Ethan said. She looked up from her mop handle. I am staying, she said, confused. For another 2 hours, then I go home. He shook his head. I mean here, he said, full-time, internal quality and welfare oversight. It's a new role. You're the reason it exists. A real job, she said before she could stop herself. With a badge. He smiled, crooked and brief. Yes, he said. With a badge? Her laugh came out as a small puff of disbelief. I can't, she said. He didn't flinch. He waited. I can't just build a life out of someone else's handout, she said softer. You gave me a chance. I'm grateful, but I've spent years being the girl somebody helped. I need to know I can stand because I chose to, not just because someone generous made room. He studied her face. That makes sense, he said. She swallowed him. Thank you, she added, for asking, for everything. A low rumble of thunder rolled outside, rain starting up again. Naomi, he said as she picked up her cart, the position will exist either way, whether you take it or not. Some doors open because you knocked, not because someone decided you deserved it. She didn't answer. Not then. She walked to the lobby. By the time she reached the glass doors, the rain had turned from drizzle to downpour. She hesitated under the overhang, hugging her thin coat around herself. Leah was with a sitter tonight, warm and safe, but Naomi would still have to cross 3 blocks of dark, slick pavement to reach the bus stop. It looked, uncomfortably, like that first night all over again. Wait! His voice came from behind her. She turned. Ethan stepped out of the shadows, holding a folded umbrella. His shirt collar was already speckled with rain. You'll catch a cold, he said. She almost laughed. I've walked through worse, she replied. So have I, he said. I used to think getting through the storm alone made me stronger. He stepped closer, the rain a curtain around them. But lately, he added, quieter. I wonder if standing still and hoping someone comes might be harder. He held out the umbrella. If you walk away now, I won't stop you, he said. You don't owe me a yes. Not to the job, not to anything. She looked down at the umbrella, at the clean, simple fabric, still dry. But, he said, if there's even a small part of you that wants to stay not out of gratitude, not out of debt, but because you believe there's something here worth building, I'd like to be the one standing next to you while you do it. She let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. I have a toddler who cries at 3 a.m., she said. No degree. I forget to eat lunch half the week. I'm terrified all the time of needing people too much. He smiled, the expression softening his whole face. I don't need someone perfect, he said. I just need someone who doesn't run the minute it gets hard. She looked up at him. Rain blurred the city behind him into streaks of silver. If you're not afraid of walking with a single mother, she said, voice low, I guess I'm not afraid of staying. She opened the umbrella and stepped closer, lifting it so it covered them both. For the first time in a long time, neither of them rushed. They just stood there, under a shared circle of dry air, while the storm spent itself on the pavement around them. 1 year later, the coal line energy logo gleamed brighter than ever above the new wing of the plant. Under it, a smaller sign had been bolted to the wall. Family First, Childcare and Training Center. The ribbon-cutting ceremony had ended hours ago. The executives had drifted off. The official photographs were done. Behind the main building, the garden was strung with warm fairy lights. Folding tables held mismatched plates. Children's laughter floated on the evening air. Naomi stood at a portable griddle, flipping small cinnamon pancakes. Her white blouse was rolled to the elbows. A streak of flour dusted her cheek. Leah, no longer a feverish bundle but a bright-eyed toddler in a yellow dress, chased bubbles across the grass, squealing every time one popped on her nose. June sat on a bench near the new childcare building, her hands wrapped around a mug of coffee. Her son, Marco, stood beside her, wearing a coal line badge with the word apprentice under his name. Ethan watched the scene from the patio for a moment, hands in his pockets. He wasn't checking his phone. He wasn't thinking about quarterly projections. He was counting the ways the place felt different. Safer, fuller, more honest. He picked up 2 plates and walked over to the grill. Second round, Naomi said as he approached, eyeing the pancakes. Third, he corrected, setting the plates down. Your fault, a small voice chimed in. Leah barreled into his leg, clinging with sticky fingers. Traitor, Naomi said affectionately. You're supposed to be on my side. Leah giggled and ran back toward the bubble machine. Naomi handed Ethan a spatula. Didn't know CEOs could cook, she teased. I still can't, he said, but I'm willing to burn things while I learn. She laughed, the sound low and warm. He wrapped an arm lightly around her waist, not claiming, just present. I never thanked you, he said, for that night in the rain, for taking the ride for Zayo, for finding that folder, for staying, and she leaned into him. You didn't need to, she said. You built a place where people like me don't have to start from scratch every time. He glanced toward the balcony that jutted from his office. An old umbrella hung on a hook there. Fabric faded a little at the edges. Next to it, a small wooden plaque read, Hope doesn't need thunder, just someone who stays. I kept it, he said when he noticed her looking. You keep things that matter, she replied. Across the grass, Marco lifted Leah high to catch a bubble. June wiped a tear from her eye when she thought no one was looking. Naomi flipped another pancake onto the plate. This isn't what I pictured, she said. Back when I thought I'd be a doctor, or when I thought I'd be mopping hotel floors forever. No, Ethan said. Me neither. He pressed a kiss to her temple, brief and gentle. But it's real, he added, and it's ours. She watched Leah run, arms wide, catching light. For a moment, everything else faded. The years of regret, the nights of fear, the storms. All that remained was this, a small, stubborn circle of people who had chosen to stay through the rain and the audits and the hard conversations. Naomi set down the spatula and slid her hand into Ethan's. Then let's not waste it, she said. They stood together as the lights flickered softly above, listening to the sound of their company, of their family laughing in the warm night.